then that's probably going to be the last. No, it's reality. You might think about Platte put an office for something for some people rather than Grand Island pickups in town.
Anybody notice the city seal is?
Well, don't you think?
Yeah.
Couple jobs, the secretary or somebody. Is Tim coming?
Yeah.
No, he has all
I didn't sound that in here.
He's what?
all these trials.
That's a reason?
Yeah. He couldn't make them.
Angela,
Try.
is he trying him or defending?
You gotta ask.
Harry's been drinking.
Well, then you think Shannon got up.
Okay, it is 9 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order. A current copy of the Open Meetings Act of Nebraska is posted on the wall at the back of the council chambers. Roll call?
Wilkie,
Here.
Stelka,
Yes.
Lucas. Here. Patterson. Here. Juliet.
Okay. First item is to approve the minutes of the March 21st, 2022 meeting.
I so moved.
Moved and seconded. Roll call?
Wilkie,
Yes.
Stelka,
Yes.
Lucas.
Yes.
Patterson.
Okay, so the next item here is a review of the DevCo redevelopment plan for Twin Rivers Industrial Park infrastructure. And Mr. Bacon?
Mr. Chairman and members of the Redevelopment Authority, my document up here. The DevCo, Chamber and DevCo have limits on what you can do out at the industrial park because they don't have enough infrastructure to build out what I'll call the first phase, which was acquired during the Walmart Distribution Center TIF project. They really need streets, gain another exit, and get sewer and water and drainage out there. So this plan proposes that they undertake a significant TIF project to extend the street sewer and water and to capture the TIF off of buildings in the area that's described in the plan. Those TIF pledges will come as buildings go online. So rather than going to the building owners, it's going to go to DevCo so that they can get more infrastructure in there. What it does then is allow Gary to recruit businesses that can go in that area and better serve the current population. So it's intended that if he recruits a whole bunch of folks right away, we can issue one TIF bond and put it all in. But we'll move it as we can. If we have to do it in small increments, we'll do it in small increments. I'll let Gary speak to the need to get that done out there because he obviously lives with this. So unless you have any questions of me, that's essentially what we're going to do. It's called the bucket TIF. So all of the property in that area, hopefully we can capture the TIF, and hopefully it'll be enough to get us across the finish line. Take about $16 million worth of improvements out there to get that much money raised. So, but North Platte appears to be moving and shaking. So, Gary?
Thanks, Mike. One of the critical factors that any community needs to have is what's called a community-owned shovel-ready business park. In order to get prospects to consider North Platte, Nebraska Department of Economic Development gets several inquiries over the course of a year, and any community that has a shovel-ready business park has they'll share with us a request for a proposal from that community. A lot of times they work through a third-party broker in an anonymous fashion, but at least you're in the recruitment game if you have a shovel-ready business park. This has proven itself over time, as evidenced by the buildings that have went out there. One of the more recent ones, K&M Tire Distribution Company out of Ohio is a prime example of having a shovel-ready business park. This is a company that had contacted us, flew in here a week after they made initial contact, and they needed to have something secured and ready to roll within 30 days. As you're well aware with this development practices, if you don't have the infrastructure there and ready to go, it just doesn't happen. Had we not had that business park, they would have been on down the road. They were looking for anywhere in over the western 2/3 of Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, possibly the Dakotas. And so we hosted them. It was one of the quickest economic development projects I've ever worked on in my career. But it's proof why a business park like that is so critical to have. Like I said, it gets our foot in the game. We make sure that once we have a prospect, they're aware of other potential sites in the community as well. Twin Rivers Business Park isn't going to fit everybody's accommodation or needs, but at least gets the company to look at North Platte. Also, one of the requirements for a certified economic development status is another critical thing that a community has to have in order to receive prospects. Nebraska Public Power District, same way, and then we market this on a nationwide basis through various search engines and so forth. And when they search and see a site like this, then we wind up getting inquiries as a result of it. So we're to the point now where with the new additions out there, 11 new buildings built in the last 2 years, there's a lot more traffic in and out of there. It'll continue to enhance. Some of that is truck traffic, obviously, and it's just very difficult when you're coming in, dead-ending, and trying to figure out how to maneuver around and get turned around. And then also, just from a fire safety standpoint, the additional infrastructure needs to be put in place. Basically, about half of the property we still own out there is in a blight zone. So we would put the street right inside the blight zone. Companies that would locate to the west of there would not be eligible for us to recapture the TIF. But certainly the infrastructure we put in helps accommodate that, and then those businesses would go immediately onto the tax rolls as well. So we've had the employers and the companies out there now express a lot of concern that this needs to be addressed sooner than later. There was a prospect looking recently. Had we had the infrastructure in over there with the amount of acreage they needed, we'd probably landed that project. But it appears now that they're going to go to Kearney instead because they don't have the patience to wait until all this is done. So those are just two recent examples of why this is needed and critical. And we know that once sustainable beef and the rail park break ground, that there will be a lot of ancillary companies follow that. And they're going to be looking all over the North Platte, Lincoln County area for potential sites. And be smaller companies, but they'll provide critically valuable services for everything we're going to do in both of those sites. Same theory of what we're working on at the rail park. If you have that planned, ready to roll out, and then your recruitment of industries, you have a reasonable chance, a fighting chance of making them happen. So that's the reason we need it. We've talked about it a lot. A lot of our Economic Development Committee and Board of Directors members are here. And we just feel the timing is really critical for us to jump on it now and move it forward while we're heading into construction season. Yes, sir.
Sir, does DevCo own the west side of that proposed new street, on the west side?
Yes. Mhm.
So that could be, in essence, that's kind of developing that side also, isn't it?
Right, right. It'll accommodate that. It's just not eligible. It's not in a blight zone. So it has not been such designated. Apparently, when the Walmart DC, of course, that preceded my time here, when that whole development rolled out and this land was secured to have a business park, there was an additional smaller parcel purchased for the very purpose, the design showed that eventually you're going to need another road system in there, so that's why it was purchased, but it was after that whole blight study and designation was done.
Gary, wouldn't it be much easier if the city did connection districts? It appears to me that the city has a much better vehicle to do this. I'm in favor of this, but I think maybe that is a conversation with the city council.
Well, I think there's certainly, Rob, that's a very valid point, especially in non-blighted areas.
Exactly.
To do it that way, or to form districts, either connection district or the traditional street water, sanitary sewer improvement districts that then is assessed to the adjacent properties. But those kind of things can also be done in conjunction with tax increment financing. This is the way for us to be able to hold the infrastructure costs down to at least make us competitive with other communities. And so it's economic development is a very competitive game out there, and every first-class community in the state of Nebraska has some type of a business park that is community or city controlled.
Well, my sense from that is that the city is a partner, whether you like that or not, as a private citizen, and in order to supply the types of lots we need, it's too bad that we can't coordinate that at a city level and work together with connection and assessment districts. And when you own a lot, you're paying the taxes. And it always occurred to me as when I worked development that the developer puts all the city sewer waters in, then the city has their requirements. You scope everything, get it done, and then you sit there and you're paying taxes. And if it's empty, you pay them, and they're a partner, but they don't participate. And I don't think there's that much risk in that development for city anymore, my thought.
So that's a conversation with city officials,
Yeah.
But the city's been outstanding to work with. I mean, they've been a wonderful partner in our economic development efforts, as has Lincoln County, especially in our work with rail park. So, but great points.
Is there a time period that you are estimating to establish that increment? So this would be available 5 years, 7 years, 2 years?
Well, obviously the eligibility is up to 15 years, and especially if we kind of roll it out in various stages. We think it's going to develop much quicker than that. I mean, you look at the fact that infrastructure was there since 2003. And, yeah, we basically only had two things out there. That was Cabela's Call Center and FedEx. And then you've seen what the effort has been in the last 5 years in more aggressive recruiting and marketing in a different fashion. And certainly, I think the tide has turned for North Platte, that statewide and throughout the Midwest, and all the national publicity that Sustainable Beef has brought to us, that North Platte's got a lot of energy and momentum going forward, and we need to accommodate it. I mean, these things, it takes years to get here. Doesn't take very long for them to go away. So we need to capture the moment and be aggressive and make sure that we do the things as a community to accommodate all this wonderful potential growth that we have in front of us.
Gary, do you have assurance that you can use administrative subdivisions on this?
No, let's see, Brent's down here, is he? You know, I mean, if it's eligible for administrative, I know, is that Judy?
Once the infrastructure is in, the reason you go full-blown subdivision is you're waiting on, once the infrastructure is in.
Your answer.
So most of these could be 2 weeks. You could have a lot ready in 2 weeks.
That makes a huge difference than going through the whole plating process. And the reason we're not putting lot lines in is that every need for every business is different. So you might have somebody that needs 1 acre, 2 acres, somebody might need 25, 40 acres. It's just, that's the reason you want to be as flexible as possible, not draw those lines in a hard line, and then certainly the administrative subdivision practice speeds up the process considerably.
As always, we applaud your efforts.
Thank you. We got a great team, everybody working together. It takes a whole community to get this done.
Final note, the infrastructure that will go along the west side, the street, although it's going to be tiffed from everything to the east, that street will allow development further on to the west, so you get a double bang there. By the way, Brandon is here. Spent a lot of time getting numbers for me in a short period of time to put these two plans together, so thank you very much. Any other questions? Your action would be moved to send this to planning and zoning for hearing and recommendation.
I'll be happy to make a motion if we, do you have a number, Angela, that would?
He's not doing resolutions, I guess he's doing by motion.
Okay. I would so move that we pass the Defco redevelopment plan for Twin Rivers Industrial Park Infrastructure in North Platte Plan Commission for public hearing and recommendations.
Moving second, is there discussion? Roll call.
Wilkie?
Yes.
Stefka?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Next item this morning is to review and Devco Housing Redevelopment Plan. Mr. Bacon?
This is the second plan in front of you today. Again, Devco seeks to purchase about 13 acres from the city of North Platte, south of 17th and Adams, develop it into 51 housing lots. So you can get some single-family homes for needed workforce. The plan is put together so that Devco puts in street, sewer, and water and drainage, and makes the lots then available for modular homes to go in. We'll let Gary talk about that, but this, hopefully, with all the infrastructure in it, would likely go in next spring. If we can do a water extension, it's possible you can open up 8 lots on paving now, but the problem is getting houses built by the end of the year. So that's not very likely. You might get 1 or 2 set in December because it's not like they have to go. So what I am told is this project should fill out maybe a house a month, maybe 1.5 a month starting in '23. So 3 to 4 years would likely be filled out, which would help amortize the TIF bond. I'll let Gary again explain the inner workings behind this, but this is straightforward like the Lonnie Parsons project. As each house goes on a foundation, that goes then on the tax rolls, and the taxes are divided. So all the houses that go on in 1 year, you capture for 15 years, then the next year, same process, so.
But it's obviously no secret that North Platte needs a lot of housing and all kinds of housing to accommodate the current demand, not even yet looking at the future demand. So we've reached out to a number of different housing developers, and please understand this is a really, really competitive situation all across the country, and in the Midwest and all across Nebraska. Developers can go where they want to go, and they'll go where a community can accommodate development. As we've reached out to lots of different entities to see if they would have some interest in North Platte, they've all been intrigued about what's going on here. They understand the current demand. They see what the future promises to be. But one thing that we hear unanimously is their frustration of not wanting to go through the lengthy process of putting a subdivision, an entire subdivision in, the risk that goes along with it. But if there were shovel-ready lots ready to go, they want to do what they do best, and that's build housing. And if we can make that accommodation easier for them, then we're at least in the conversation with these companies. We knew when we were first proposing to do this, or in these recruitment efforts, and thinking, well, are we the organization that needs to drive this forward, because we just haven't seen people willing to step up and get it done. We knew the question was going to be there, well, if we go through all this process and we convince the city that this particular parcel, they would be willing to sell it and to approve a redevelopment plan accommodating tax increment financing, they're going to want to guarantee that somebody's going to build the houses to make it all work. So we entered into very serious conversations with a company that does very, very quality modular house construction. They have a vested interest in North Platte's future and wanting it to be successful. And those conversations are still going. We have a verbal commitment from them. At this point, we don't have all of the particulars worked out, but they think that they can do at least one house per month over the next 4 years. But they're going to do their best to maybe accelerate that a little bit. And this is just a small portion of what we need to do as a community when it comes to housing. We need all ends of the spectrum, from the low income to the low and moderate income to what they call now the affordable workforce housing, to the upper end custom homes. We're working with developers that are doing some of those other things as well. But this is of a more urgent need, because we really feel that by our development corporation driving this forward, we can make those lots as affordable as possible for somebody to commit to providing those houses at a rate, at a cost that matches up with some of our wage scales and income-producing families here. So this would hopefully accommodate enough families that you might be able to fill another 100 jobs in the community, and certainly we can make it successful. It could be a model that maybe could also work in other circumstances. As we looked around the sites that are available, obviously the thing that we needed to make this viable was find a piece of property that was already blighted. And knowing that, this can be additional revitalization and kind of a shot of energy for the north side of North Platte, we thought that would be even more desirable and maybe more palatable for the community to embrace, allowing us to do a redevelopment plan there. So this was city-owned property, and so this would also, of course, be the final judgment of the city council, whether they would sell a property at an appraised value, much like what was done with Sustainable Beef, so we can accommodate this housing. And housing, bottom line, is where jobs live. If we don't have housing, we're not going to accommodate the jobs. We're not going to accommodate the workforce. And employers are going to continue to be more frustrated than they already are when it comes to being able to find housing. Our inventory as a community is probably at a historic low. We have a real estate agent on our board of directors, and we have one on our economic development committee. We get monthly reports from them. And over the last 2 years, it's been somewhere in the 20 to 30 number of houses in any one given month that are on the market. For a healthy market in a community the size of North Platte, it ought to be 150 at any one time. That's a healthy market to where people have choices. And I know a lot of employers have lost really quality people they were trying to recruit in here because they couldn't find a place to live. And surrounding communities are becoming more and more aggressive at their housing development. Lexington, for instance, has got a plan to build 1,000 houses. And we're going to do all the work to create the jobs, bring the employers in. We're not going to capture that workforce unless we get more aggressive as a community and get after it. And it's got to be one after another. And like I said, from A to Z, we've got to put full energy and effort. Just as I said before, we got a wonderful opportunity to grow the economy, to grow North Platte. I can't tell you how many times heard what you've heard. People have said, well, we're stagnant. It's been, North Platte's the same population base it's been since 1980. And we've watched all our peer communities of the same size since 1980 accelerate their growth, accelerate their efforts with housing. They've all done redevelopment plans to accommodate tax increment financing for housing subdivisions. And North Platte is behind the 8 ball, and we're behind that effort. So we've got to step up our game and get after it. It's going to continue to benefit long-term. You look at every house that comes into North Platte, somebody's probably going to be living there for the next 100 years. So that little bit of assistance we get up front to help buy down the cost of the infrastructure through the use of redevelopment, that's going to continue to pay dividends. And those 100 years, those families are going to live there. They're going to be working and earning paychecks, and that money's going to get spent here too, not in some other community. So I ask you to help us support this concept and to pass it on to the Planning Commission at this point. And it's not necessarily, we got plenty on our plate anyway, in all the efforts with trying to grow economic development, but it doesn't happen without housing. And I just came from an economic development conference where I had 140 developers from across the state at a conference up in Valentine this week. And every single one of them are involved in housing. They know that that's part of the game with economic development anymore. 40, 50 years ago probably was not the case, but it is today. And everybody's trying to figure it out, and it's tough. And so we've got to do everything we can.
I would like to add one thing just for the general information. I've almost been in economic development as long as Gary. I thought that what you did was you bring a sustainable beef to town and everything else would just take care of itself. And I was wrong. You cannot grow your community without rooftops. I will also tell you that other than a couple large projects from Douglas County to Scotts Bluff County, all projects are now TIF for housing because of the inability to get materials timely, because of the spiking prices. If you want to get housing out here, you're going to have to use TIF. That may not be politically popular, but it is true. Lexington is a prime example of housing going up, and Joe, the city manager, is trying to get 1,000 units up in about an 8-year period, and he's going to make it, I think. But it's all done with TIF to buy down the cost and get them going. So that's reality. You just can't de-risk house construction without somebody willing to assist the process. That's just reality. So anyway, be glad to answer any questions you have.
For these modular homes, will they be on foundations?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a wood construction that comes in. It's brought in on a framework that's removed. It's true wood construction. It's not a mobile home.
So the front door space,
The models that we've seen, they do. Yes.
will the folks have choices on floor plans?
They have some different designs, and they can accommodate that, so they won't all look like cookie cutters. They'll have little different designs and so forth, and, and there may be, when we get this thing rolling, they might be able to, if somebody buys in advance, they might be able to, choose some of the different colors or accommodations, but that's up to the company. That burden will be on them to do that, but obviously, they want to make it as attractive as possible. And they're in high demand. They're shipping a lot of their product now out of state. And we need to keep it in Nebraska. The need is so great here.
I went on their website, I was amazed how nice looking those are. So the area out there, you're looking at 13.2 acres purchased. How many acres are in that partial that the city owns total?
Just shy of 30.
30. About
30.
Yep.
And so we're only taking about a third for this.
Yep.
Because that was years ago designated as expansion of cemetery.
Right.
But with the changes in the way people are interned in nowadays as more as remains rather than full caskets. Seems to me that would be a long, long time
Yeah, some of our committee members have had that direct conversation with the folks there, and they felt the city's for quite some time.
Our estimation is our current rate is $75. And the next, it's changed from full burial to, call variants and different things. So, with the current trend remain, acres less than given the common.
Yeah, the narrowest lot, I believe, is 65 feet, so they were all size as well. The curves of the road accommodate for some stuff at the golf course to move the house a little bit further away. And then it got us the lot size we need. It also allows all the lots to have the paved driveways and garages on the home, for the home. So that's kind of how they sit in there. They should be the door facing forward like you asked, with a garage, driveway, all paved. They're not trailer houses by any means. They're stick-built homes. It's just that they're built off-site, brought in and set on the foundation.
With all of our shovel-ready lots for development, it'd be very, very nice if the company who's going to be building these would make home North Platte. We wouldn't have to ship them so far.
Well, that conversation is in play.
Okay.
Again, same, if you have no further questions, the request of DevCo is that you move to forward the plan to Planning and Zoning for public hearing and recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, put forward. Any discussion?
And Mr. Bacon, this is contingent upon city purchase.
I'm sorry, Ken.
It's contingent upon city selling the land,
Yes,
correct?
yes, it's contingent on getting the dirt.
Okay.
Wolke,
Yes.
Stefan,
Yes.
Lucas.
Yes.
Okay. Next item here is consider granting the chair authority to forward redevelopment plans submittals to North Platte Planning Commission for public hearing, recommendations without formal action by the CRA membership. So I understand correctly, once it goes through planning.
Well, the way, the process currently is, plan is presented to you to do the process that you're doing now. The mayor is trying to, I don't want to take his thunder away, but the mission that all of us have been given is, let's speed up the process. In order to speed up the process, there are some things that can be done. This meeting is to consider the plan. No decisions are made. It's shipped off to planning and zoning. If an application goes into Judy and she determines that it is complete, if you wish to speed up the process, you can give the chair the authority to copy you with the proposed plan, but administratively send it on to planning and zoning, so it speeds up trying to get 5 people in a meeting. And so that's the issue that we put out there. If you all want to have this type of meeting before it goes to planning and zoning, then you would take no action. The process, again, goes to planning and zoning for a hearing, it comes back to you, then you make your final recommendation, then it goes to city council for a hearing, then it comes back to approve a redevelopment contract. So this would just take out a couple of weeks in the process. The mayor would like to get this done in 30 days, and that's a big ask. And so in order to do that, that's the issue in front of you, so.
Before we make that motion, is it for these two or from now on? Or is it just an instance, or are we changing the
It would be
formula?
going forward. The other thing I think is if you would all get a copy of the plan, and if something is apparent to you that you don't want that process to be in place, you can always ask that the chair to go through this process. As long as you don't hit reply all on that email, you just call the chair. So I am agnostic, but if you want to go faster, this is the first place that we can cut. So,
Mr. Bacon, so my question is in regards to how much it gets altered elsewhere. And that's just by email, and just come back to this group and decide whether they have issues with it, be expedited or not, or if it's all good, that's not the full group, or what do you?
I think the proper way of doing it, and it's actually been blessed by the Supreme Court in a case involving TIF, is I intend to administratively set forward this to planning and zoning unless someone objects, and then please request the full meeting. You know, again, don't hit reply all, but that process has actually been blessed by the Supreme Court. So it does put burden on you to, when the email comes, sit down and review it. And I know this isn't on a 40-page redevelopment contract. This is more along the lines of a 10-page redevelopment plan. So you don't have to consume all those pages. Obviously, you would have questions, perhaps, but I think with Judy, with your new chair, and as you see in all my emails to you, please call with questions. Be glad to help that process along. It is, again, trying to make the process more accommodative to the public.
I guess, Mr. Bacon, our role from the beginning is just, or my thought, estimations, what my sense was our role was to make sure that the application met the requirements of the, for the TIF project itself. I've always wondered why it really is approved by Planning Commission and City. They are really the approving parties more than CRA. We can say that it meets the criteria, then we suggest it forward. They are the ones who have the final decision.
Actually, it's the city council has the final decision. The planning and zoning is just to make recommendations and to see if it fits with the comprehensive plan, so that you don't have a hog rendering facility in an R1 district type of thing. You really do the details and make the deal with a extensive contract. So, yeah, the monkey is really in your lap. Once the general plan is approved by the city council, then the devil's in the details, and you're the devil, so you're the one that holds everyone's feet to the fire and makes the ultimate deal. So, but the plan isn't the ultimate deal. The plan is the general direction that you're going to go. You like the Constitution as opposed to the statutes, as opposed to the regulations. So it's the overall, does this project fit? And that's what this plan that you just forwarded is about. It says, we're going to do 51 lot subdivision, we're going to issue TIF, and hopefully we'll get 51 houses built in 3 or 4 years. But then the contract is specific, but we're not there yet. So is the concept of 51 houses okay with you, and doing TIF for them? Is that okay? I got a call from Don yesterday about all of the questions that he asked today, wanting to know, is this going to be a quality project? And I hope he's satisfied, but yeah. And so the question becomes, are you interested at all in shortening the process, shortening this process, you haven't made any decision on this other than to send it to planning and zoning. I will tell you, if you don't send it to planning and zoning, it dies. Because this is not TIF is not a matter of right, TIF is a matter of grace. And so you don't have to do.
Well, it occurs to me, we still get back to shortening the process. And if we recommend it in city or planning commission or any of those through there, say, no, it doesn't go forward. Have we ever had an issue where it's went through that whole process and finally it was after the final approval? And I thought there was only one step from us, city, planning, then it comes back to us again. Then you say there's another one? I didn't remember a third.
So you go recommend to planning commission hearing, back to the redevelopment authority to make a recommendation to council after receiving input from the planning commission.
Oh.
Then it goes to city council hearing, and back to you to bless the redevelopment contract. And all of those steps are just in the statute. You would think they'd have a simpler process, but they're just got a lot of steps. And it really stretches the process out. I generally tell folks it's a 60-day process. The mayor is trying to send a message to the world that North Platte's open for business, so. That's a good thing. Gary is absolutely right. It used to be 3 years to recruit a business, and now it's, do you have something for me? Boom, yeah. And a lot of these companies are, prove to me that you have the TIF in place that you've promised me. And so it is a crazy world. And right now, there are just lots of opportunities out there. It's just, the phone just doesn't quit ringing.
I would make a recommendation that we alter the procedure without I'm going to phrase this a little different, without understanding completely the long-term effect of that, alter to grant the chair authority to move forward with the redevelopment plan for these two projects after the North Platte Planning Commission so that it can go forward to the city council. Is that correct?
You can't, you're off by one meeting. These are going on the process. These are going the long way. What the motion would be, if you wish to do it, is eliminate this meeting. Okay? So it is CRA meets to send it to the planning commission. If you eliminate that, we can shorten the window.
I see.
Yeah. So we cannot eliminate the meeting for the recommendation to the city. That's statutory. So this would just give your chair the ability to say, we don't have to have this meeting, but we can have the next two. And at the end of the day, this meeting makes no decision. The next two are the critical ones. And it can be, planning can say, we don't like it. It comes back to you, and you can stop it there. You can say, well, planning, we understand that, but we're going to make a recommendation to the city council anyway. And the city council can stop it. So. This is just trying to shorten, eliminate this meeting. And it's a meeting that has no teeth.
question, so at this point in time, would we still get the information?
You would get the information from Greg, and it would say, I plan on sending this to the planning commission for a hearing, unless you all want to have a meeting first. If one of you wants to have a meeting first, then we put the brakes on it, have the meeting, and get going. The reason we're having this process right now is we're trying to meet publication deadlines, which were established last week, had to get notices to the paper 2 days ago. So this is all hands on deck from Angie to Judy to Brandon to Brent, just everybody trying to get it going so we can start the process. So.
Mr. Chairman, I, as you know, am reluctant to speak in terms of how we can bring myself up. And this is the subject of people, but as a representative of the one press representative that is here, I would point out that the fact that you had to reach publication deadlines and get this information out allowed us, in this morning's meeting, to present the details of both of these projects to the community in a pretty complete fashion. And even if we were not here, the public would have had the opportunity to know well before something goes to the planning, to know what projects were being proposed and to be able to speak on this matter. I will not advise you as to what you ought to do, but we do believe that transparency in all things, especially in a small community, is the best way to make sure that everybody is on board, as opposed to trying to find shortcuts here and there. So I typically try to be a fly on the wall, but when matters such as this come up, I feel like I need to speak on behalf of my publication. Thank you.
Can I speak to that? I represent Wilkinson Development, which I'm the Chief of Operations. We're a local developer. We're developing truck stops from Lincoln to Sydney. We've been working in Lexington to redevelop a truck stop since 2019. Recently, in December, we were actually able to start the TIF process with Mike Bacon representing us. And this next week, we'll actually finish our TIF application redevelopment plan agreement with the redevelopment CRA division there. And that's a long time to work on a TIF application because, as you all know, you're not supposed to proceed with your development and your project before that TIF agreement is finalized. And so I totally appreciate what Todd's saying, but as a developer and what Gary's saying, we're not patient people. And we have multiple different projects going all at the same time. And if that timeline doesn't work for us, it could push a project out years because we jump on our other projects to get those projects done. Anything you can do to make this process go faster for the developer is going to be key for our community. I think you're going to have an opportunity to hear from the public through the whole process, and Todd has every opportunity to get that information from the city. Any publication or media does. Cassie and Gary are extremely capable of getting that information to the media. We have media partners on our committees and our boards with the chamber, and they're up to date all the time. So appreciate you guys trying to do whatever you can to make this go faster. Thank you.
I would just add, of course, I will seek that. It's just one step farther down the process.
Todd made this point. Request at the same time that it's a good way. They could come here. This is not a hearing. They can't. It's time to the press right out of the gate when it goes here to the press.
That would certainly be fine from my perspective.
So who's responsible for getting that information?
The boss.
As long as I get it from Greg, then
Your point, Don, I think it'd be good for us to understand how that looks, irrespective of who sits in this chair. Then one board member request, we'd like to hear one chair, and we both up, direction. I like you earlier, I do think we need to make this extra. We also go back. That's what we're doing, make sure it's kind of a process, somehow, to find out what the group is supposed to do.
One of the things in the process that we see is, plug your ears on this one. Developers think that if they fill out half the paperwork and they'll get the rest of the stuff to you later and let's go, you really need to get all of the stuff in there before a plan can be drafted. And then it has to be reviewed with the developer to make sure that we're saying it right, that it describes it right, and then it goes. So there's a lot of work. Judy's got to do work for it. So a lot of pieces, and then we have to do some calculations and visit with the developer on timing and so forth. So it's this process, trying to get into 30 days is daunting, but it is doable. So, and if we can give everyone the ability to say, wait a minute, let's slow down, I think that's good, especially if we can get it to the media at the same time that you would get it.
This motion will not affect the two that we worked on this morning.
No, sir.
I'm not-
We're trying to get them in 30 days, so, yeah.
I'm not personally comfortable changing this without, I'm a little surprised it's on the agenda without being told. I'm not sure how long it took, Angela, when you began to contact us for this meeting. It was Monday. So if we delayed from Monday to Friday to get together, I'm not sure that the CRA was at fault for taking some time, but my sense is that either that or we might entertain an idea, and I'll just throw it out for the other board members, that we maybe table this till the next meeting.
I
If
say
it's the-
something?
Yes.
Judy Clark, Planning and Zoning Administrator. I know you guys are a little bit hesitant about this. Before you see the plan, before you see what's in front of you right now, it has been through vigorous review from everybody on staff. Mike Bacon works with us. The second we get an application in, we work with the developer, we work with everybody. It's been through a review process. So what you get, your plan that you see initially for this meeting, is just a referral of, okay, we've looked at this, we've reviewed it, we think, like Mike Bacon said, it's 51 houses, we think it's gonna be a great idea. You take no action, you're not gonna change any of it, you're just gonna have a lot of questions, maybe in some instances, and in some instances, you may not have any questions at all. We're not trying to eliminate any of your power at all. It's hard to get this meeting set in order to meet timelines because of the advertisement for the next 3 meetings that occur. That's the only thing. We're not trying to take anything away from you guys at all. But you should have I would say, 100% complete plan, probably covering 98% of the questions that you're going to ask in front of you right now, like today. There shouldn't really be much other than just clarification that you guys are going to have questions about, in most cases. Now, that doesn't mean there's not going to be one that's going to come up that might be a little confusing or something like that you would want to call a meeting for. But in most of them, like this one, he answered, 3 questions maybe? Otherwise, you had a really pretty good plan, I think, in front of you. So that's the only thing that they're trying to. It's hard to get this meeting together to meet timelines. And if we miss this meeting, it pushes it back a whole entire month or a month and a half at that point. So that's the only thing. I was just thinking that you guys were getting really confused that there's, I understand you guys really have to review it, you really have to look at it, but that has also been done on our end too, multiple times, and they've probably been working on this more than I have. So they've probably been working on it for, year, 2 years, month, 10 years, I don't know. But it just seems to me like this meeting could be a lot easier. And by just referring it to Planning Commission, you're not losing any of your power. Your power comes in between Planning Commission and City Council. And then ultimately at the end. Does that maybe explain it a little better?
Thanks, Judy.
And I would say as a community journalist, I want you to have 100% of the plan you present too. I will not, but I'm not the only person in town that's in the business here. And, I've seen over 35 years of working in newspapers and in business that, and maybe you've seen this in other matters, that you can say something 100 times. And if you don't say it the 101st time, people will say you never told. Now, that doesn't mean, the meaning of that is there can never be enough notification because not everybody hears everything at the same time. The more opportunities you have to put it in front of people, especially in a small community, the better it is. How you do that, if I can get the information at the same point before the planning commission meeting, so the community knows what's coming up, so much better. That's what I always try to do in this case. But I'm not the only member of the press in North Platte, and I just don't know what's here today.
So the issue that you get in terms of trying to put everything in the 30-day window is we have to get a submittal to the paper deadline, in this case submitted Wednesday, so it's published Saturday. It has to be published twice, and then wait at least 10 days after that last publication to have those hearings. We have set city council hearings and we have set planning commission hearings, so we gotta get everything else set up and back up from that time period. And so that becomes our challenge in trying to do that, and that really at best consumes 30 days unless people are going to have special meetings, and that's why this is the only place that I can think of to maybe shorten the process. The other option would be to, because we have had difficulty in the past getting a quorum because people are busy in their lives. The only other way to do it perhaps is to set monthly meetings of the CRA, because I suspect you're going to be busy moving forward. But even that makes it a challenge. set you up at the first of the month, so we can hit all those processes and do that. That's another option, but. I will tell you, in most other communities, they forego this step and they automatically send it on to the planning commission. So, even in Omaha, I think.
Question for you, Mr. Chairman, and for Mr. Bacon, is I'm curious if the CRA, this meeting, with all due respect for the media and this process, could be done in conjunction with the Planning Commission meeting. In other words, could the CRA notice up a meeting, have it as a contingent item on the Planning Commission agenda, and be able to do it in the same evening or afternoon in a way that this process could still exist right before the Planning Commission, and then it would provide the press and the community kind of the total package in one shot for the first public hearing. So that's my question for you, Mr. Bacon.
Mr. Lucas, tell me that again. Please explain that process.
I guess my question is whether it's whether it's feasible to put this process right ahead of a planning commission meeting. So I think a lot of the issue is that the planning commission meets once a month, and everybody in the public knows when those planning commission meetings are, and it's a known time to come for public hearings related to zoning or these types of matters. And so my question is, could this meeting just happen right ahead of it? And then at that point, if the CRA opted to not take it to the Planning Commission, it would die and come off the Planning Commission agenda at that point. Or at that point, if I guess I'm just asking the question of whether is there a way to get the best of both worlds here for everybody involved.
So Ty, you're saying like CRA could meet at 5 and planning commission at 5:30 or something?
Yeah, that's my question, is whether we can do that to try to have respect for all of the concerns that are, I think the concerns that are on the table are all valid. And so I'm trying to think of, is there a way to get the best of both worlds here?
Yeah, could. The process still is, you should have a complete plan before you start your publication, because the plan has to be available for the public to inspect, and it has to have a cost-benefit analysis done before then, and so it really needs to go prior to the hearing. So it's going to be ready, it better be ready before the newspaper goes to publication. That's why we were scrambling with this process. It basically started
You know you're going to have another meeting on these two projects soon. You take the time to formulate how you want this to be and bring this question about the future back.
So I would say two things. Action. The other thing is you have a new member and a new chair. Maybe it's time for TIF 101 to talk through how processes work, what you like, what you don't like, what information you want, and those sorts of things. So I would suggest you have a planning session that we could sit down and address those issues with you. It is not critical. It's not a deal killer. It's just the mayor wants this process to go faster, and this is the only place I know that we can compress. So I beat this horse.
Chairman, may I have the floor?
Brandon Kelleher, the mayor of North Platte. My address is public. I just want to talk for a second about why it is we're here having this discussion. When I was running for mayor, one of the things I consistently heard from many people, not only developers, but people interested in doing business, is that A, it's very difficult to do business in North Platte, and B, it takes too long. It was a consistent message from everyone that I talked to on that subject. So I ran and campaigned on making many of our processes more efficient. This is the first one that is a really big process that we're trying to make faster and more efficient. How we conduct the process bears very little on how the final decision that's made. It's just moving it along a little faster. I think Mr. Lucas's recommendation, I don't know where he went, but that maybe this meeting could be held immediately ahead of the Planning Commission. If the CRA feels that's appropriate, then I don't have any problem with it because it contributes to the overall efficiency of the process. However, we will be pushing to move these processes related to TIF faster than we've done it in the past. 6 months, 9 months to complete this process is crazy. That's why we're losing businesses to other entities or to other cities. We can't do that anymore. We need to be more efficient. If we detect a problem in the process, then certainly we will stop. We'll determine what needs to be done and we'll delay appropriately. But if there are no issues, it should fly through relatively quickly to the point of decision. And then the decision is the decision, whatever it may be, yes or no. That's just my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Mark Woods. Will this really, when did you guys get your packets? On Monday, did you say, Mr. Lucas?
May 10th.
Okay. I don't know if this will really speed it up if you go with the chair. I think we need to consider how this will look to the public. It won't be taken well. It'll be looked as, trying to sneak it in and get it done quickly without informing the public. I know it can be published in the paper. Newspaper readership isn't what it used to be, so a lot of people still won't know. I do like Ty's suggestion. You would still have the meeting, or else you choose another day so you all could arrange your schedules so you wouldn't delay it. If you pass this on to the Planning Commission today, will it be on their agenda this month? Or does it have to wait till next month? I don't know the time frame on that.
It's scheduled, we're actually having a special special planning commission meeting. We're delaying it by a week because of the required publication. So instead of on the 24th, which is the normal meeting, we'll be on the 23rd.
Okay.
But yes, we will have one.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I think tabling it might be a good suggestion so y'all can, think about it a little more.
I really like the direction that the difficulty in putting the CRA board together is we never know when it's going to be. If there is nothing for the CRA to consider, we don't meet anyway. But if we knew that there was, we would have to have the same notice that the Planning Commission, if it's a chosen date, we would know ahead of time if we could be ahead of that. I like that recommendation to speed it up. And I'm not averse to the chair doing it, but at least with the Planning Commission, if we meet prior to that with Mr. Lucas's suggestion, the plan would be together. We would have time to review it because the time that's scheduled for the Planning Commission meeting, we would have the information. That should save. What gets more difficult is not that they meet once a month, it's the time frame in between when we meet and the publication and some of the other things. I would suggest that, but it's up to the other board members.
I agree with you. anything to talk about, we don't need to have the meeting. We can have it right before the planning commission meeting every month. Then paper knows, all the media knows when it's going to be, if we're going to have one, they know it's going to be the same day. And if we don't have any agenda, then we don't have to meet.
Well, the important thing is, my friends, then we know a date. We know a date that we can be available, rather than Monday, say Friday, and regardless if you wanted to travel that day or other plans, you work around the schedule. But at least if we know we're gonna have a project, we know the date, and we can plan for that ahead.
So, let me
have a clarification question to this. So then, I mean, from the planning commission's perspective, they're gonna wanna do their due diligence before the meeting starts. And so then are they doing it concurrently? I mean, they're gonna get the information at that time, just like we did, is that how you see that working? Or, and then if we say no, it's not that, we'll go there, but it's still, I'm just trying to figure out the logistics between those two. Because it shouldn't go to the planning commission without that step, and they're not, if you go to the planning commission, they don't due diligence up before the meeting starts, out to the site or doing all the research.
Yes.
So they're taking time before the meeting starts to get ready, so it's like, well, we're doing it right before. We're not doing that. I mean, I'm just trying to logistically figure out what planning commission's doing.
They should be able to have this information so that when we meet, when we make a decision, they know what, they'll know at their meeting that we made the decision, and they already know the background information. I think that would be good.
So the process, all of that bless that you can do it any time prior to the planning commission. And at that point, you can pull the plug and say, we're pulling this off of planning commission. We're not sending it. So what Ty says will work. I'm just trying to, it's not as simple as you think. This meeting, planning and zoning, back to this group.
It's a requirement, Mr. Bacon, that we have the planning commission meeting prior to the city council meeting? It seems to me that is a.
Statutorily required to
Okay.
have a planning commission.
Okay.
Then it comes back to you, and it's statutorily required to come back to the city council meeting, so those four. Statute, and then doing the contract stuff.
I would think you've got enough material to work, to think through this, and formulate a final decision to make on the procedures for the next time we meet. Probably be considering the application on these two projects after the next planning commission. You know exactly what you're doing. But also, if their planning commission is scheduled to meet every month, sometimes they can't, because they don't have to. So, that schedule.
Maybe I'm missing something, but if you meet before the planning commission and you recommend that this goes ahead to them, how does it speed that up? Because they won't be able to act on it until the next meeting, right?
I think the plan would be they would get the information the same time as CRA gets it. And so
Mhm.
if we just say yes, it would be an agenda item that same night, and they would act on it. I think that was the intent of that being back to each other, because
That sounds like we're just a little bit different way of doing the chair, just sending it along. To me, doesn't sound, now that I've sat there and thought about it a while, that's why I think you all should table this for a little bit and maybe really consider it. You know, this is pretty important. And there's a lot of perceptions involved in all of this, so. I really think you ought to slow it down, think about it, and come to a much better informed decision.
detail.
I sense that I've changed my mind twice on how I would do this. I would like to have a full board at the same time that we consider this. We are not going to delay any processes or hold any development up by tabling this. It's just when do we get back together? We know there will be a meeting between the planning commission and the city council. And hopefully we can encourage everyone to be here when we meet that meeting. And that's, again, we don't want to delay that process for publication, but I think we can work around it. Pretty much have Angela pick a date out for them. So I would make a motion to table it until our next scheduled community redevelopment authority meeting.
Yes.
Probably, even I think that we need to, the original thought was that we get this information, we'll meet and we get this information, we don't make a decision today as to what we're doing. That the planning commission decision that we make this decision. actually have a planning commission. Is that correct, after the? In other words, if we don't have this first meeting, we just get the information, then the planning commission meets. And then we meet and approve the planning commission. That's what, so my thought is, right back to the beginning here, is to speed things up. Because what's the purpose of this meeting? So we can table it, discuss it more. That's fine, got a motion, second.
Well, and that discussion with the same situation when you pass the planning commission, and then we have to get together to meet the criteria between planning and city council. So there's the window that you try to put the board back together again. You know, anyway. And we don't want to delay the process there either.
To your point, you're gonna have to get another meeting of this group prior to, after the 31st and before the 7th, before the, so
We have to have it on that Thursday then, because I have to do my agenda on Friday.
Just saying, yeah, so this is, you think it's science, but it's more art trying to get all this stuff filled in. And if you don't meet, then the city council can't have its hearing. So between the 31st and 5:30 on the 7th, we gotta get a quorum again to make a recommendation, so. I would say tabling it would be a good thing right now. And let us wrestle with it maybe at a group planning retreat.
Wilkie?
Yes.
Stepka?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Patterson?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other business this morning? Okay, we're adjourned. So if I was, as long as I could. Oh, yeah. Trying to think about it.
No, it didn't take. Well, I don't know what it's called.
I think that's pretty solid.
I'm not.
But having, to have this, you know, because I.
At least if we know, if they know the reality, they decided the next meeting exactly.
See, I'd rather go in with that meeting. Yeah, that's the statute that he has here.
For me, this deal,
I think as long as you get the information, well, advance, so people know. Question. Yeah, this is going to be a agenda. It's not going to learn about it.
Yeah. To me too, call us here in 2 days. Move the meeting from 11 to 1. Throw that on my agenda and I didn't see it. Didn't pay any attention to it.
I know. I just know these things happen.
I did too, but I didn't look at I didn't really,
That's the idea.
and I thought maybe it was on this.
Yeah. We talked about it.